Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the WE Knives Gava, or something along those lines. First off, though, I want to thank very much my Patreon patrons who make it possible for me to just pick up random $200 knives because, hey, that looks interesting. You make the channel possible. I'd also like to thank very much, actually, Blade HQ for helping me grab one of these guys. They've been longtime supporters of the channel, and that's a beautiful thing. Next thing, let's do some size comparison real quick. Here it is against the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. So what we see here, in terms of sharpened length, we are almost identical to the PM2, even though the actual blade length is a little bit shorter. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica. And then here it is by next to a knife that is a longtime favorite of mine and actually made by a designer of the, by a friend of the designer of this guy, and that is the Spyderco Swish Bowie, which is a beautiful knife in and of itself. And so there's that. Next thing, this is a design by, Rafal Brzeski. I believe I've said that properly. I've been mispronouncing Machin Swish's name for years, and I'm trying to do better. But anyways, Rafal, that I can do, is the guy behind Burr Knives, BRR. You can see here, that is his little logo right there. This is actually the same person who did the WE Knives Wasabi that I reviewed way back when. Way back when. But anyways, this is another design from him, and it's a really cool piece. So let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting knife. On the good side, to start with, this has a really nice size to it. I feel like this range here, the 3.25 inch, about 8 centimeter knife, is a really good sweet spot. And we see a lot of the really popular knives landing right about there. Although it's right over the edge for people with a 3-inch knife law, this is quite good. And this is going to be well equipped for pretty much anything that comes up in your daily life. I appreciate it very much in that way. Next thing, the ergos on this guy are quite nice. What we see here is that you've got a nice grip on it. With my relatively small hands, I've got a full 4-finger grip. You can also choke up a little bit and use this surface here to get a little bit more detail, and you can actually even get a pinch grip out of it with these little areas here. But nonetheless, this is a very nice knife in the hand here. Ergonomically speaking, it's pretty damn well done. I'm glad about that. Next thing, this guy has a unique clip, but it is a reasonable clip. It works well. It's got right amounts of tension. It's just well done, and it's also reasonably wide, which is one of the reasons the ergonomics are quite good. Wide clips, actually, and this is kind of counterintuitive, right? You'd think a small clip would be a little bit better, but generally speaking, a wider clip will distribute the pressure of your hand a little bit more, widely, and as a result, you end up with a little less hot spotting, but it's a good clip. It works well. Not the deepest carry thing in the world, by the way. It carries about like this out of the pocket, but still, pretty solid. Next thing, this has a nice disassembly. Although it's a little bit on the complex side, it works out pretty well. And allows them to basically have 2 screws on the front, even though there's a lot more holding this together than that. You watch my disassembly video, you'll get a full sense of it. But and it's a little, I don't want to say tricky, but it's well thought out, but it's a little strange. Next thing, on the good side, this guy has, and the good thing is that it's done smartly, right? Not that it's more complicated than it needs to be, right? They've done a good job of hiding the hardware. Anyways, on the good side, the price on this guy is actually pretty solid too. This is $235. Now look, it's a chunk of change, right? But the thing is, it's a titanium frame lock. It's 20 CV steel with a nice thin edge, nice grind, and a really good design with some very clear machine time here. I am okay with that. That's a pretty good price, and frankly, relative to a lot of what's out there in the world, this is not a bad price at all. So I appreciate that very much. Next thing, this guy has a very nice sound to it. It just has a very... Oh yeah, this locks nicely. It just feels good in locking up. I appreciate that very much. And so that's good. Then finally, on the good side, the blade on this guy is quite nice. What we see here is that the steel on this guy is CPM 20CV. That is the steel marking right there. See? Very subtle, but you can see it. And 20 CV is, if not the best blade steel ever, it's damn near close. But it's also a relatively thin grind here. We can see this comes down to a nice thin edge at both the base and the tip, which I appreciate very much. And frankly, it's a nice shape. You've got a little tiny bit of clip to it. You've got a nice swedge to it here. Just a nice profile overall. You've got some flat, you got some belly, you got a nice... This is just a good blade. And so to me, at least, that's what's great here. That's what's good here. Is we got a nice blade, nice sound and action, a price that's pretty solid. Disassembly was done pretty smartly. Planning for it. The disassembly was done by me, so that's not quite the same thing. Anyways, I digress. It's a reasonable clip, good ergos, and a great size. On the great side, though, to me, is the design. This is like I said, this is a design, and it's, like I said, this is a design, and then I look at the person's name and think, I'm probably going to butcher that, so I think I got it right the first time. Rafal, if you will, has done a really nice piece of work right here. Because what we see here is that there are a lot of details about this guy. It's a little bit unique, it's off the beaten path, and it feels very, well, frankly, futuristic. Right? What we have here are very nice little grind lines, and mind you, these aren't, sure, dirt and such could get trapped in there, but you could clean that out without too much difficulty. But you see symmetrical lines on both sides here. You see shared lines across the pocket clip down to the frame of the knife. And in fact, those lines on the knife itself continue. We see this line continuing down to here with a nice little cutout, and this mirrors this. This is something that was very clearly designed. It is kind of off the beaten path, certainly. But in a world where we have too many where you have too many knives that feel like generic pocket knife number 13 has been released, this has a lot of details here. It's just got a lot of really nice things. Even the top of the blade here is completely flush when the knife is closed. You have all of these nice details. This little cutout gives you more flip-a-tab access on a relatively subtle flip-a-tab. I am just, I like this design just substantially. I think it's excellently done. And, honestly, it wears the stonewash well, right? It's got a little bit of a techno-futuristic thing. I mean, this thing is so cyberpunk that it crashed when I set it on my Xbox, right? This is a very, very serious piece of work. I appreciate it very much, and I think as a design that it is absolutely great. On the bad side, one thing I will say about the design, and the first thing a lot of people say is, there's a little similarity there, and indeed there is. But the thing is, considering the number of pictures on the maker of this guy's page with machine swish, it kind of feels natural, right? Kind of a birds of a feather flock together thing. I assume that no one's bent out of shape about it, and it's just the case that these two people have similar aesthetic styles. So I feel like that one's pretty okay. Next thing, this is entirely gray, right? We got two shades of gray here, which given, but that might not be something a lot of folks are in love with there. It's got the external lock bar cutout thing, which honestly is one of those things that I think the knife would just be prettier if it were an internal lock bar cutout. If it were on the inside here, so this was a flat area mirroring the backside, that would just be a little bit nicer. Next thing, this screw is going straight into the titanium on the other side there. It's not the end of the world, but it does mean that if you cross-thread that, or strip out those threads, you're sending this guy back to the maker and hoping for a possible replacement in the future there. Next thing, this little cutout on the blade spine. I like it from a design perspective. The fact that we're mirroring this in this, that's cool. But the problem is it actually makes the area directly under your thumb thinner when you really want that to be the widest part of the blade. This is a very, very little ergonomic nitpick. It's not a big deal, but it is something that's going to feel a little bit less comfortable here than, for instance, when you've got the wide part of the blade and then it narrows down to a thin one. I think that's fundamentally a difference, and that is one thing that makes this guy a little bit less comfortable in heavy gripping. And then finally, on the bad side, the detent on this guy is a little tiny bit weak. It's not terrible, but compared to a lot of what WE Knives puts out, the detent isn't as strong there. If I put down a bunch of pressure on the lock bar, I can definitely get a much stronger WE Knives style detent, but the detent is a little bit borderline with continued use here. It was, and I think part of that's just lubrication and wear in. So to me, at least, all of that is the bad. Is that the detent is maybe a little bit weaker on this than I'd like. The blade spine cutout seems to be exactly backwards. The screws run into the titanium. There is an external lock bar cutout. It is a little bit of a 50 Shades of Grey knife right here, and it feels very much related to the swish buoy, but yeah, I can get it though. On the ugly front, there's really nothing ugly here. So let's go into the final conclusion, which is that this is a really great knife, honestly. I mean, it's a great size. It's got good ergos, a nice clip, a well-thought-out disassembly, a nice price, a nice sound and feel, a nice blade, and honestly, just a neat design. Sure, it's all gray, it screws right into the titanium, the blade spine cutout isn't great, and the detent could use a little bit more strength on this guy, but it is pretty excellent, and it is really good evidence that good design matters, right? The world is getting full of 20 CV frame locks, even at this kind of price point. And this stands out not because it's technically excellent, which it is, by the way. Fit and finish on it is great, right? This is a beautifully made pocket knife here. Did I mention the backspacer? Look at that freaking backspacer. But not just because it's technically excellent, or not because it's really good in value, although it's pretty good in value, but it stands out because of the design. It stands out because this looks really good. This has a great aesthetic, and it has an aesthetic that's a little bit unique. It has an aesthetic that stands out, that's different from the norm. This is not your average pocket knife, and I appreciate that so very, very, very much. And when you combine a great aesthetic with a great blade, solid construction, and then you offer it at a price that is pretty solidly competitive, even in a world of too many damn frame locks, I have no problem calling this knife a gem. And so if you're loving the look and you're able to swing the price and you pick one of these guys up, I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a good time. Anyways, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now. Burr now? Get it? Burr knives? No? No? Okay. Bye now.